Some secrets are meant to protect us. Others slowly suffocate us from the inside out. I learned the difference on a Thursday night in December when my roommate Lila burst through my bedroom door at 3:12 a.m., clutching my emergency EpiPen in her shaking fingers. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to where it all began 4 months earlier. When I first moved into that narrow brownstone walk-up in Brooklyn's Bed-Stuy, hauling duffels stuffed with clothes, books, and a secret I'd vowed never to unpack in front of another stranger. The apartment smelled like old wood and lemon polish when I crossed the threshold. Lila Moreau was perched on a step stool in the kitchen, stringing fairy lights along the window frame, her curls tied up with a paintbrush. "Sorry for the chaos," she called, hopping down. "I redecorate when I'm anxious." New roommates make me anxious. I liked her immediately. She was 29, 2 years older than me, with hazel eyes that caught every color in the room, and a laugh that started in her chest and spilled out like music. She wore a vintage denim jacket covered in enamel pins, tiny planets, tiny books, tiny bees, and had the kind of energy that made the whole apartment feel wider than its 12-foot width. "I'm Nora," I said, offering my hand, "and I'm probably more nervous than you." Her grip was warm, paint-flecked. "Welcome home, Nora. I made brownies. They're probably burnt, but they're made with love and too much espresso." The brownies were perfect, fudgy, slightly salty, the kind you eat standing over the sink. Over the next few weeks, we slipped into an effortless cadence. Lila illustrated children's books from the sun-drenched corner of the living room. I'd just started as a staff writer at a music magazine downtown, my dream job after years of freelance scraps. We'd share coffee on the fire escape in the mornings. She'd sketch album covers I described. I'd read her my leadies aloud. She'd cook experimental pastas when she hit creative blocks. I'd wash dishes, and we'd watch grainy concert films until 2 a.m., arguing over set lists and laughing at wardrobe malfunctions. It was easy, electric, the kind of friendship that feels like recognition, but I was hiding something. Severe allergies had shadowed me since I was 12. Peanuts, tree nuts, sesame, random, ruthless, potentially lethal. 12 years of reading every label twice, carrying 2 EpiPens everywhere, rehearsing restaurant scripts, waking from nightmares where my throat closed like a fist. 12 years of watching friends' faces cycle through alarm, pity, and the slow fade of distance. My last roommate, Jonah, had meant well, but after one ER trip, my lips swelling, vision tunneling, he'd started policing every takeout order, every party invitation. "Are you sure you can eat that?" became his refrain. I moved out after 7 months, bone-tired of being a liability instead of a person. So when I moved in with Lila, I decided, no disclosures. My EpiPens lived in a locked tin inside my sock drawer. I'd check menus in advance, slip away to the bathroom to scan ingredient lists on my phone, pretend my picky eating was just quirk. It was isolating, but it felt safer than the alternative. The first fracture appeared 8 weeks in. I'd been at a label showcase in Williamsburg, reviewing an indie band whose green room spread featured suspiciously glossy hummus. I'd skipped it, but cross-contamination is a sneaky bastard. By the time I stumbled home at 1 a.m., my tongue felt thick, my chest tight. Lila was awake, painting at her easel under a clip lamp jazz low on the speaker. "Rough night?" she asked, not looking up. "Long one," I croaked, beelining for my room. The hallway stretched like taffy. I locked the door, fumbled the tin open, jammed an antihistamine down my throat. My hands shook too much for the EpiPen. I wasn't there yet. I set a timer, 20 minutes, reassess, and curled on the rug, counting breaths. Knock, knock. "Nora, I brought you tea. Chamomile, no honey." Her voice was soft through the wood. "Leave it outside, thanks." Crashing hard, a pause. Footsteps retreating. When the reaction plateaued and my pulse slowed, I opened the door to a mug, a sleeve of plain crackers, and a sticky note in Lila's looping script. Hydrate. "Holler if you need anything, okay?" Something in my ribs cracked, unrelated to anaphylaxis. The close call made me hyper-vigilant, but it also made me hyper-aware of Lila. The way her tongue poked out when she shaded clouds. How she danced while the kettle boiled, barefoot, humming in French. the concentrated tilt of her head when she listened to my stories, the way my stomach flipped when she leaned over my shoulder to read a draft, her hair smelling like turpentine and vanilla. I started lingering after she came home from figure drawing meetups, inventing reasons to share the couch. I felt the absence when she was out, the apartment too quiet without her off-key singing. This was treacherous. I'd dated before. Short, careful things that crumbled when I had to explain why I couldn't share dessert, why I carried pharmacy in my purse. Lila deserved someone who didn't come with a disaster plan. So I did what I always did, swallowed the want, buried it deep with the other things I denied myself. Autumn bled into winter. The radiator clanked like a drunk percussionist. We strung more fairy lights to combat the early dark. We developed rituals, Thursday thrift runs, Sunday crossword races. Lila teaching me to make her Cajun grandmother's gumbo while I helped her letterbook titles and perfect serif. Friends assumed we were together. Lila would grin and deflect with a wink. I'd laugh too loud and change the subject, pretending the ache was heartburn. One Friday in early January, Lila's brother Jules visited from Montreal. He was a whirlwind, tall, tattooed, fluent in affectionate teasing. He took one look at us, sharing headphones on the couch, and dragged Lila into the kitchen for a hissed conference that ended with her cheeks scarlet and him fist pumping. "Your roommate's a keeper," he told me later, stealing a corner of my bagel. "She hasn't shut up about you since August." "Nora thinks this. Nora wrote that. It's disgusting." "We're friends," I said, the lie scraping my tongue. "Uh-huh." Jules studied me with eyes too sharp. "Friends who look at each other like the world starts in the other's pupils." "Sure." "It's complicated," I muttered. "Love usually is, Sherry. Love." The word lodged under my ribs like a skipped beat. Was that the constant hum under my skin, the gravity pulling me toward her orbit while I braced for impact? Jules must have seen the panic flash because he softened. "Whatever monster you're wrestling, it's smaller than you think. My sister's terrified of thunderstorms, but she'd still run into one for someone she cares about. She doesn't scare easy. If only he knew the storm I carried in a plastic tube." The EpiPen incident happened 2 weeks later. I'd been feeling the warning tingle all afternoon. Tight throat, itchy palate, after a cafe review where the barista swore the banana bread was nut-free. By evening I was wheezing, hives mapping my arms. I knew the drill. Antihistamines, monitor, epi if lips swell or breathing tanks. But I was stubborn and ashamed and convinced I could ride it out in private. By 2 a.m. I was vomiting in the bathroom, vision spotting, fingers too clumsy to grip the pen. I staggered to my room, upended the sock drawer. The tin skittered under the bed. The room spun. I remember the floor rushing up and Lila's voice, raw with terror, screaming my name. I woke to fluorescent ambulance lights strobing across her face. She was on her knees beside me, phone to her ear, EpiPen empty on the rug. "She's conscious," she told the dispatcher, voice cracking. "Yes, I followed the instructions. Thigh 15 seconds. We're 3 minutes out." Her free hand trembled against my cheek. "Stay with me, Nora. You're okay. You're okay." But the betrayal in her eyes said nothing was okay. I'd hidden a loaded gun in our home and it had gone off. The ER was sterile chaos. Oxygen masks, IV Benadryl, vitals beeping like accusatory metronomes. Lila answered the questions I couldn't. Onset time, possible triggers, medical history I'd never shared. She never left the cubicle. She sat in the plastic chair, knees bouncing, reaching for my hand, then stopping herself like I was contagious. By dawn, the reaction was subdued, my lungs clear. The doctor, a brisk South Asian woman with a voice like warm tea, lectured me on risk thresholds and carrying meds visibly, then signed discharge papers. "Your roommate saved your life," she told me. "That dose bought you the window we needed." Lila's mouth flattened. She nodded once. The cab ride home smelled like wet wool and antiseptic. Brooklyn blurred past in sodium light. I kept replaying the moment she'd found the tin, the moment she'd realized how much I'd concealed. Back in the apartment, she pointed to my room. "Sleep. We'll talk when you're steady." I didn't sleep. I counted water stains on the ceiling, Rehearsed apologies that all sounded like excuses. How do you say I was scared without saying I didn't trust you? How do you admit you built a wall out of fear and called it privacy? At 11 a.m. she knocked, entered with 2 mugs of cocoa, mine with almond milk, a detail that now felt like evidence. She handed it over, sat on the windowsill instead of the bed, keeping the room between us. I read everything, she said quietly. Anaphylaxis protocols, cross-contamination, biphasic reactions. Watched videos of people using EpiPens on oranges because the real demos made me nauseous. She swallowed. I needed to understand what you've been carrying alone. The cocoa burned my tongue. Lila, please, let me finish. Her voice shook but held. I'm not angry you have allergies. I'm angry you thought you had to hide them from me. That you thought I'd treat you like a walking emergency instead of... Please, let me finish. Her voice shook but held. I'm not angry you have allergies. I'm angry you thought you had to hide them from me. That you thought I'd treat you like a walking emergency instead of... She stopped, eyes glassy. Instead of my favorite person. The words cracked me open. My last roommate, I'm not him. She set her mug down, moved closer, sat on the bed's edge. I'm the idiot who leaves paint in the fridge and sings Celine Dion off-key at 7 a.m. I'm the one who notices when you flinch at certain menus, who started ordering sesame-free takeout weeks ago because I thought you just hated tahini. I was already trying to make space for you, Nora. You just never let me in. Tears tracked hot down my cheeks. I was protecting myself. From what? From me caring? She took my hand finally. Her fingers were paint-stained, steady. I'm terrified of losing you. Not to allergies, to the distance you keep building. I laughed, a wet sound. I'm terrified of being a burden. You're not. You're the person I text memes to at 2 a.m., the one whose byline I brag about to strangers. The one She stopped, cheeks flushing. Doesn't matter. Point is, your allergies are a footnote. Hiding them made them the whole story. Silence stretched, thick but not suffocating. Outside snow started to fall, fat flakes against the window. I'm sorry, I whispered. I thought if you saw the worst part first, you'd never see the rest. Lila scooted closer, knees touching mine. I've seen you dance in socks to songs you pretend to hate. I've seen you cry at concert footage of crowds singing back to the artist. I've seen you stay up until dawn rewriting a paragraph because one word felt wrong. I've seen you, Nora, the rest is just logistics. My breath hitched. Logistics that could kill me. Then we learned them together. She pulled a new EpiPen twin pack from her pocket, still in pharmacy plastic. I picked these up at 24-hour CVS, and I'm Venmo requesting you for the copay because fairness. A shaky grin. Also, I signed us up for an allergy safety course next Saturday. Non-negotiable. I stared at the pens, at her determined face. You're not scared? Terrified, she admitted. But I'm more scared of a world where you handle this alone. Where I don't get to hold your hand in the ambulance because I didn't know to call it. Something loosened in my chest. A knot I'd carried so long I'd forgotten it had edges. I leaned forward, forehead against hers. I'm in love with you, I said, the words tumbling out raw. Have been for months. That's the other secret, she laughed, breathless. Took you long enough. Then softer. I love you too. EpiPens and all. We stayed like that, breathing each other in, snow piling silent on the sill. Later, we moved to the living room. She spread cookbooks across the coffee table, marking recipes, quizzing me on safe brands. I showed her how to use the pen on an orange, both of us giggling when juice squirted across her sketchbook. We made a shared note on our phones. Restaurant safe lists, emergency contacts. A running joke about starting an allergen-free bakery called Nora's Not Dying Today. That night, we fell asleep on the couch. Her head on my shoulder, fairy lights twinkling like low stars. For the first time in 12 years, the weight of my condition felt shared, not shouldered. Secrets had suffocated me. Truth, it turned out, was oxygen. Some secrets protect us. Others teach us how to breathe. The rain in Portland never seemed to stop. A constant drizzle that painted the city in shades of gray. I sat on the edge of my bed, my hands wrapped around a mug of chamomile tea that had gone cold an hour ago. Across from me, Noah stood by the window, his silhouette framed against the blurred city lights. His shoulders were tense, his jaw tight, and the silence between us was heavier than the storm outside. "You should have told me, Liam," he said finally, his voice low but sharp with hurt. 3 months. 3 months of you slipping away after dinner, locking yourself in the bathroom, coming home looking like you'd seen a ghost. And I thought you were pulling away from me. From us. I swallowed hard, my throat tight. I wasn't pulling away, Noah. I was trying to keep things normal. I thought we were friends. My voice cracked, and I hated how small it sounded. I thought if you knew, you'd see me differently. Noah turned to face me, his hazel eyes searching mine. Differently how? Like what, Liam? Like you're some kind of project? Because that's not what I see when I look at you. I see my friend. The guy who stays up until 2 a.m. debating the merits of sci-fi novels with me. The guy who makes the world's worst coffee but somehow makes it taste good because you're smiling when you hand it to me. And yeah, the guy who passed out in his room last night scaring the hell out of me. My chest ached at the memory. Last night had been the worst low blood sugar episode I'd had in years. I'd woken up on the floor, disoriented, Noah's panicked voice calling my name as he shook me awake. He'd found my glucose tabs, forced juice down my throat, and stayed with me until I was stable. And then this morning he'd confronted me. Not with anger, but with a raw, unguarded hurt that cut deeper than system. Any blade. I didn't want you to see me like that, I admitted, setting the mug down with trembling hands. I have type 1 diabetes, Noah. I've had it since I was 14. And I've spent the last decade learning how to hide it, how to manage it so no one treats me like I'm broken. Noah's expression softened, but the hurt didn't fade. Broken, Liam, why would you think I'd see you that way? Because that's what happened before. I leaned back against the headboard, the weight of the past pressing down on me. My last roommate, Caleb, found out the hard way. I had a low in the middle of the night, and he saw me, shaking, confused, barely able to speak. After that, everything changed. He'd hover, ask what I was eating, panic if I wanted to go out. He meant well, but it felt like I wasn't Liam anymore. I was Liam with the diabetes. I moved out because I couldn't stand being his charity case. Noah crossed the room and sat on the edge of my bed, close enough that I could smell the faint cedar of his cologne. So you thought I'd do the same? That I'd treat you like you're fragile? I didn't want to risk it, I said quietly. When I moved in here, I just wanted to be normal. To have a friend who saw me for me, not my condition. I thought if I kept it under control, you'd never have to know. Noah ran a hand through his dark curls, frustration etched into every line of his face. Do you know what scared me last night? It wasn't the diabetes, Liam. It was that you were suffering alone, 10 feet away, while I was clueless in my room. You didn't trust me enough to let me in. I was trying to protect you, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Protect me? Noah's voice rose, not in anger, but in exasperation. From what? From caring about you? Newsflash, Liam, I already care. I've cared since the day you helped me salvage my graphic design portfolio after I spilled coffee on my laptop. You stayed up all night with me, cracking terrible jokes to keep me sane. I care so much that seeing you on the floor last night felt like my heart stopped. The raw emotion in his voice hit me like a wave. This wasn't just about friendship. There was something deeper, something I'd been too scared to hope for. Noah, I said, my voice trembling. What are you saying? He stood pacing to the window again, the rain streaking down the glass like tears. I'm saying I've been falling for you for months. I'm saying our mutual friend Mara was right when she teased me about the way I look at you. I'm saying I've been trying to find the courage to tell you, and then last night happened, and I realized I might not get another chance. My heart stuttered, then raced. You have feelings for me? He turned, his eyes vulnerable in a way I'd never seen. Is that so hard to believe? You're brilliant, Liam. You're passionate about architecture, and the way your eyes light up when you talk about sustainable design makes me want to listen forever. You're kind even when you're grumpy from a long day. You make these ridiculous puns that shouldn't be funny but are, and you have this habit of tapping your pen when you're thinking that drives me up the wall in the best way. I laughed, a shaky sound. My puns are top tier, thank you very much. A smile flickered across his face, soft and fleeting. See? Even now you're perfect. I'm not perfect, I said, my voice breaking. I'm the guy who hid a chronic illness from you for 3 months because I was terrified of losing you. I'm not perfect, I said, my voice breaking. I'm the guy who hid a chronic illness from you for 3 months because I was terrified of losing you. You're human, Noah said, sitting back down closer this time. You were scared, I get it. But I need you to know something, Liam. Whatever you're dealing with, I want to be there. Not to fix you, not to pity you, but to support you. As your friend. Or as something more if you feel it too. The hope in his eyes was almost too much. I've wanted more since the day you burned toast and tried to pass it off as artisan char, I admitted, my cheeks flushing. But I thought you deserved someone without all this baggage. I deserve someone who makes me feel like I'm home, Noah said, his voice steady. He reached out, his hand hovering near mine, giving me the chance to pull away. When I didn't, he laced our fingers together. You do that, Liam. All of you. Tears stung my eyes. I'm scared, Noah. Scared you'll see me at my worst and decide it's too much. I saw you at your worst last night, he said, his thumb brushing over my knuckles. And all I felt was terror that I might lose you. Then relief when you woke up. Then determination to learn everything I could to keep you safe. You're not a burden, Liam. You're... You, I swallowed hard. Managing diabetes is a lot. Constant blood sugar checks, insulin doses, carb counting. It's not glamorous. It's part of your life, Noah said. And if you let me, I want to be part of your life too. Not as the guy who manages your diabetes, but as the guy who's there for all of it. The highs, the lows, the in-betweens. The word partner echoed in my mind, warm and terrifying. I don't want you to feel responsible for my condition, I said carefully. That's my job, but I want someone I don't have to hide from. Then don't hide, Noah said, leaning closer, his forehead nearly touching mine. Let me in, Liam, all the way. I thought of the past 3 months, the secrecy, the exhaustion, the loneliness of managing my diabetes alone. Then I thought of Noah, his warmth, his laughter, the way he'd stayed up all night researching diabetes after last night's scare. The way he was looking at me now like I was enough. Okay, I whispered. I'm letting you in. His smile was like sunlight breaking through the Portland gloom. Good, but I need a promise from you. Anything. If it ever feels like too much, tell me. I couldn't handle you staying out of obligation. I'm not going anywhere, Noah said, his voice fierce. But you have to promise me something too. No more hiding. If you're struggling, tell me. If you need help, ask. And if you ever feel like you did last night, wake me up immediately. I promise, I said, my throat tight. Good. His smile softened, and he leaned in. Can I kiss you? Because I've been wanting to for weeks, and I'm done waiting. My heart soared. Please. The kiss was gentle, tentative, like we were both afraid to break the moment. His lips were warm, his hand cradling my face with a tenderness that made my chest ache. When we pulled apart, breathless, he rested his forehead against mine. I have a confession, he murmured. I knew something was off. I didn't know what, but I could tell you were holding something back. I was trying to figure out how to ask without pushing you. I laughed, the sound watery but real. We're both terrible at this. Lucky we've got time to get better, he said, pressing a quick kiss to my lips. Now rest. Doctor's orders. You're not a doctor. I'm your boyfriend now, he said with a grin. That's close enough. Boyfriend. The word sent warmth spiraling through me. Not too fast? Perfect, I said, squeezing his hand. The weeks that followed. The first few weeks of our relationship were a delicate dance of learning and trust. Noah dove into understanding type 1 diabetes with the same intensity he brought to his graphic design work. He watched videos, read articles, and even joined an online forum for partners of people with T1D. He learned the signs of high and low blood sugars, memorized where I kept my glucose tabs and glucagon kit, and set up my continuous glucose monitor, CGM, to send alerts to his phone. It could have felt overwhelming, but Noah had a knack for balancing care with respect. He'd check in with a casual, "How's your sugar?" without making it feel like an interrogation. When I was high and irritable, he'd sit with me, offering quiet company instead of solutions. When I was low and shaky, he'd bring me apple juice and tell ridiculous stories about his college art projects to distract me. "You're scarily good at this," I said one evening, sprawled on the couch with my head in his lap. His fingers traced lazy patterns through my hair. "Good at what?" he asked, his voice warm, supporting me without making me feel like a patient. He leaned down to kiss my forehead. "Because you're not a patient. You're my boyfriend who happens to have diabetes. Big difference." I smiled, but old insecurities lingered. My ex Julian didn't see it that way. He'd say things like, "I wish you weren't so high maintenance," or, "It'd be easier if you didn't have to plan everything." It wasn't cruel, but it made me feel less. Noah's hand stilled. "He said that?" I nodded, the memory stinging. It wore me down. I started thinking I was too much trouble. Noah shifted, so I was looking up at him. "Liam, you are not high maintenance. You're managing a chronic illness with grace and strength. Anyone who made you feel otherwise didn't deserve you. You're not less. You're everything." "What if I have a bad day?" I asked, voicing my deepest fear. "What if my sugars are all over the place and I'm a mess?" "Then you'll have a bad day and I'll be there," he said simply. "Just like you'll be there when I'm stressed about a client rejecting my 10th logo draft. That's what this is, Liam, showing up." I pulled him down for a kiss, pouring every ounce of gratitude into it. The kiss deepened, his hand sliding under my shirt warm against my skin. We'd been taking things slow, building trust, but the chemistry between us was undeniable, a spark that ignited with every touch. "Liam," he murmured, pulling back slightly, his breathing uneven. "If we keep going, I'm not stopping." Heat coiled in my stomach. "Who says I want you to?" His eyes searched mine, still cautious. "You checked your sugar recently?" 40 minutes ago, I said, kissing along his jaw. "I'm in range." "Stop worrying and take me to bed." He laughed, the sound rough with want. Bossy. In one smooth motion, he stood, scooping me up. I wrapped my legs around his waist, laughing as he carried me to his room, bigger than mine, with a view of Portland's twinkling lights through the rain. What followed was slow, tender, and electric. Noah's touch was reverent, his whispers of affection making my heart race. When we came together, it felt like a promise, a connection that was as emotional as it was physical. Afterward, we lay tangled in his sheets, the city lights casting soft shadows across his face. "I love you, Liam," he said, his voice quiet but certain. The words hung between us, perfect and terrifying. "I love you too," I whispered, tracing the curve of his shoulder. A new rhythm over. The next months, we built a life together. Noah learned my routines, how I bolused insulin after meals, how I adjusted for exercise, how stress could spike my sugars. He never tried to take over, but he was there, a steady presence. He'd cook with me, learning to estimate carbs in recipes, turning it into a game. "Is this pasta 45 grams or 50? He'd ask, holding up a plate with a grin. I opened up in ways I never had. I showed him my insulin pump, explained how my CGM worked, let him see the logbooks I'd kept for years. He listened with focus, asking questions that showed he cared, not out of obligation, but because he wanted to understand me. There were hard days. A stubborn high that left me exhausted and frustrated, a low that hit during a work presentation, leaving me shaky and embarrassed. Noah was there for all of it, never flinching. He'd bring me a snack, sit with me in silence, or crack a joke to pull me out of my head. One night, after a particularly rough day, I found him in the kitchen, poring over a diabetes cookbook. "What's this?" I asked, wrapping my arms around him from behind. "Trying to find a low-carb lasagna recipe you'll love," he said, leaning back into me. "I'm determined to nail this." You don't have to, I said, resting my chin on his shoulder. I want to, he said, turning to face me. Not because I have to, but because I love you, and I love being part of this with you. I kissed him, slow and deep, gratitude and love tangled together. For the first time in years, my diabetes didn't feel like a weight I carried alone. It was part of me, but it wasn't all of me. And with Noah, I was enough. Portland, Oregon had a way of wrapping itself around you. Damp air, moss-covered trees, the hum of a city that felt alive even in its quiet moments. I'd lived here for 5 years, ever since I moved from Ohio to chase a career in photography. My epilepsy diagnosis at 22 had derailed my original plan to be a photojournalist in war zones, but I'd carved out a niche shooting moody, intimate portraits for local magazines and indie musicians. My life was carefully curated. A small apartment in the Alberta Arts District. A tight circle of friends who knew me as Liam, the guy with the quick laugh and the killer eye for light. What they didn't know, what I'd hidden from everyone, was the epilepsy, the seizures, the meds, the fear that one wrong moment could unravel everything. I'd gotten good at hiding. My seizures were mostly controlled with medication, but they still came, unpredictable and humiliating. I'd wake up on the floor sometimes, disoriented, muscles aching, with no memory of how I got there. I kept a medical alert card in my wallet, but I never told anyone. Not my friends, not my colleagues, not even my sister Mia, who lived across the river in Vancouver. I told myself it was to protect my independence, but really it was shame. Epilepsy felt like a flaw, a crack in the image I'd built. If people knew, they'd see me as fragile, broken. So I kept it locked away, a secret heavier than my camera bag. That's how I met Noah Sullivan. It was a rainy Thursday in October, the kind of day where Portland's gray sky felt like a blanket. I was at a pop-up art market in the Pearl District, shooting candids for a local culture blog. Noah was running a food stall for his new catering business, serving bite-sized rosemary focaccia with whipped goat cheese and fig jam. I snapped a photo of him flipping dough, his dark hair tied back, flour dusting his forearms, a grin lighting up his face as he bantered with customers. He caught me mid-shot. "Hey, photographer," he called, wiping his hands on a towel. "You gonna ask permission or just keep stealing my soul?" I lowered my camera, heat creeping up my neck. "Soul's safe. Just wanted the shot. It's good light. He laughed, a warm, unguarded sound. Fair, but you owe me a focaccia for the trouble. I took the focaccia and his number. Noah was 31, a chef who'd trained in San Francisco before moving back to Portland to start his own business. He was charming, a little intense, with hazel eyes that seemed to see right through you. We texted for days, then met for coffee, then dinner at a tiny Thai place in southeast Portland. He was easy to talk to, passionate about food, curious about my work. I liked how he listened, how he leaned in when I talked about framing a shot or chasing the perfect golden hour. For the first time in years, I felt seen. Not as Liam the photographer, but as Liam, the person. But I didn't tell him about the epilepsy. Not on our first date, not on our third, not when we started spending nights at each other's apartments. I was falling for him, hard, and the secret sat like a stone in my chest. I told myself I'd tell him eventually. When the time was right. When I was sure he wouldn't look at me differently. The time was never right. The night. It broke. It was 4 months into seeing each other, a chilly February evening. Noah had cooked for me at his place, a loft in the Central East Side with exposed brick and a kitchen that smelled like garlic and thyme. We'd eaten pasta with clams, drunk too much red wine, and ended up on his couch, tangled together, laughing over some stupid movie. I felt safe, happy, reckless. I stayed the night. I woke up wrong. The world was a blur of pain and noise. My body jerking, my teeth clenched so hard I tasted blood. A seizure. I was on the floor, Noah's voice cutting through the fog, panicked but steady. Liam, can you hear me? Stay with me. His hands were on my shoulders, keeping me on my side. I couldn't answer, couldn't move, couldn't do anything but ride it out. When it stopped, I was shaking, sweat-soaked, my head pounding like I'd been hit by a truck. Noah was kneeling beside me, his face pale, eyes wide. Are you okay? Talk to me, Liam. I tried to sit up, my limbs heavy. I'm fine, I croaked, the lie automatic. You're not fine, you just had a seizure. His voice was sharp, not angry, but urgent. What's going on? What do you need? I wanted to disappear. The shame was a tidal wave drowning me. It's epilepsy, I mumbled, avoiding his eyes. I'm sorry, I should have told you. He was quiet for a moment, and that silence was worse than yelling. Epilepsy, he repeated like he was testing the word. And you didn't think to mention it? 4 months, Liam. I know. My voice cracked. I know I screwed up. Do you? He stood, running a hand through his hair. I'm not mad you have epilepsy. I'm mad you didn't trust me enough to tell me. What if I'd done something wrong? What if I'd hurt you? I didn't want you to see me like this, I said, the words spilling out raw. Weak, broken. I didn't want you to think I'm less. Less? His eyes flashed. You think I'd love you less because of this? You think I'm that shallow? I don't know, I shouted, then winced as my head throbbed. I've spent years hiding this because people look at me differently. They pity me. They treat me like I'm made of glass. I didn't want that from you. Noah's face softened, but he didn't move closer. I get being scared. I do. But you don't get to decide how I feel about you. You don't get to hide something this big and expect me to just be okay with it. I'm sorry, I whispered. I thought I was protecting us. You were protecting yourself, he said, not unkindly. And you left me in the dark. I need to process this. Can you give me that? I nodded, my throat tight. He helped me to the couch, got me water, made sure I was stable. Then he grabbed his keys. I'm going for a drive. I'll be back in a bit. Stay here. He was gone for 2 hours. I sat on his couch, staring at the medical alert card I'd pulled from my wallet, the one I'd never shown him. When he came back, his eyes were red, but his voice was steady. I'm not going anywhere, he said. But we need to talk. Really talk. No more secrets. The fragile beginning. The next morning, I told him everything. The diagnosis at 22, the fear of losing my driver's license, the way I'd stopped chasing big dreams because seizures made travel risky. I told him about the meds I took twice a day, the neurologist appointments, the way I avoided alcohol to lower my seizure risk. He listened, asking questions, taking it in. When I finished, he reached for my hand. I avoided alcohol to lower my seizure risk. He listened, asking questions, taking it in. When I finished, he reached for my hand. I'm in this, Liam, he said, but you have to let me in, all the way. I wanted to believe him, but trust was harder than love. I'd spent years building walls, and they didn't come down overnight. We said, I love you, a week later, on a hike in Forest Park. The words felt huge, terrifying, like jumping off a cliff. I love you, I said, my voice shaking. All of me, even the parts I'm scared to show. I love you too, Noah replied, and it was the truest thing I'd ever heard. But love didn't make life perfect. A month later, I had a seizure in the middle of the night at my apartment. I woke to Noah's voice, calm but urgent, guiding me through the post-seizure fog. You're okay. You're safe. Breathe. He'd read up on epilepsy, knew to keep me on my side, knew to check the time. When I was lucid, he handed me water and my meds, his hand steady on my back. I'm sorry, I said, tears I couldn't explain streaming down my face. For what? He asked, pulling me close. For having a seizure? For needing me? This is what we do, Liam. We take care of each other. His words were perfect, but my insecurities weren't so easily silenced. The first fight a week later, we had our first real argument. I'd had a rough day, stress from a big photo shoot, a missed dose of meds because I was running late, and a near-miss aura that left me jittery. By evening, I was a mess, snapping at Noah when he asked if I wanted to order pizza. I can decide what I want to eat, Noah, I said, sharper than I meant. I'm not a kid, he raised his hands. I was just asking. Chill. The tension festered. When my phone buzzed with a reminder to check my med schedule, Noah glanced over. You take your evening dose yet? Can you back off? I snapped. I don't need you babysitting me. I'm not babysitting, he shot back. I'm checking in because I care, but you're acting like I'm the enemy. It feels like you're waiting for me to screw up, I said, my voice rising. Like you're just proving I'm a liability. That's not fair, he said, his patience fraying. I'm trying to be here for you, but you push me away the second it gets hard. Maybe I need space, I said. Space or walls, he countered. Because walls keep me out, Liam. The truth hit like a slap. I sank onto the couch, the fight draining out of me. I'm sorry, I said quietly. I'm scared you'll decide this is too much. That one day you'll wake up and realize I'm more trouble than I'm worth. Noah sat beside me, his anger softening. Talk to me. What's really going on? In his arms, I let it out. I'm terrified you'll get tired of the seizures, the doctor visits, the way my life has these rules. I love you, and I trust you, but there's this voice that says I'm too complicated. He was quiet for a long moment. I'm not gonna lie, he said finally. This isn't always easy. I worry I'll miss something, that I won't know how to help. But being with you, that's the easy part. You're not your epilepsy, Liam. You're the guy who makes me laugh when I burn a sauce, the guy who sees beauty in everything, the guy I want to come home to. You're enough, but you have to believe it, or we're gonna keep fighting these ghosts. He was right. I need help, I admitted. Maybe a therapist, someone who gets chronic illness. And I need to learn how to support you without overstepping, he said. There are groups for partners. I'll find one. The fact that he saw this as our problem, not just mine, cracked something open in my chest. We'll figure it out, I said. Damn right, he replied, kissing my forehead. Growth and breakthroughs. The next few months were work. I started seeing Dr. Patel, a therapist who specialized in chronic illness. She helped me unpack the shame I'd carried since my diagnosis, taught me to see epilepsy as a condition I managed, not a defect. Noah joined a support group for partners of people with chronic conditions. He came home with practical tips, how to ask about my needs without hovering, how to handle his own fears, but also with perspective. This is normal, he'd say. Couples figure this out all the time. We got better at communicating. I learned to say, I'm having a bad epilepsy day instead of shutting down. Noah learned to say, I'm worried, can we talk? Instead of checking my med bottle every 5 minutes. In April, 6 months into our relationship, I had a breakthrough. I was at a client's studio, shooting a band, when I felt an aura, that strange electric warning that a seizure might be coming. Old Liam would have powered through, risked collapsing in front of strangers. New Liam called Noah. My aura's acting up, I said, stepping outside. I'm okay, but I don't want to drive. Can you pick me up? I'm 10 minutes away, he said, already moving. Stay on the line. You take your rescue med? Not yet. I'm not seizing, just off. Good. Keep talking to me. Tell me about the shoot. He kept me calm, asking about the band, the lighting, anything to ground me. By the time he arrived, the aura had passed. I climbed into his car, shaky but seizure-free. You called me, he said, his voice full of wonder. You didn't try to tough it out. I'm learning, I said. We both are. He squeezed my hand. I'm proud of you for trusting me. Summer and promises summer in Portland. Was magic. Long days, food cart festivals, the Willamette River glinting under the sun. Noah and I celebrated our 6-month anniversary with a weekend on the Oregon coast. My first trip since my diagnosis where I didn't hide my condition. I took my meds openly, checked for auras without shame. Noah helped me plan meals to avoid. Seizure triggers, turning it into a game. How many carbs in that crab cake? It felt normal. It felt like us. One night on a beach in Cannon Beach, the sky a riot of orange and pink, Noah turned to me. I need to say something. My heart raced. Okay? These 6 months have been the best of my life, he said. Not despite your epilepsy, but with it. Facing this together, it's made us real. I want a future with you, Liam. Seizures, photo shoots, burnt dinners, all of it. Tears stung my eyes. I want that too. He smiled, nervous but sure. You're my home. Then he pulled out a small box. My breath caught. Not a ring, he said quickly, grinning. Not yet. I'm a planner. Inside was a leather cord necklace with a pendant, a tiny camera lens engraved with my medical info on one side, and Liam Carter, loved beyond measure, on the other. It's a medical alert, he said softly. But it's also you. Beautiful, strong, mine, I cried. He fastened it around my neck, kissed the hollow of my throat. I love you, I said. Always, he replied. Full circle. 2 months later, Noah was drowning in a catering gig for a tech company's gala. He'd been working 18-hour days, stress-etching lines around his eyes. One night at 3 a.m., I found him in our kitchen, since I'd moved into his loft, staring at a failed dessert, his hands shaking. It's trash, he muttered. The whole menu's gonna flop. I recognized the spiral. Close the laptop, I said gently. Eat something. Sleep. I can't, he said, but he was crumbling. You can. I've got you. I made him a sandwich, sat with him while he ate, listened as he admitted his fear of failing. You care too much to fail, I said. But you're human. Sleep 4 hours. I'll wake you. He slept. I stayed up, prepping his mise en place. When he woke, he fixed the dessert in an hour, calm and focused. You saved me, he said, kissing me before the gala. That's what partners do, I said, echoing his words. The gala was a triumph. Noah's food was the talk of the night. More importantly, he learned to accept help, just as I had. The proposal and beyond Rosa, Noah's younger sister, visited for his 33rd birthday. She saw us, our easy rhythm, the way we anticipated each other's needs, and grinned. Told you love's worth it, she said. That night, Noah traced my necklace. Remember when I said not yet about a ring? My heart skipped. Yeah. I'm planning it, he said. I want forever with you. The proposal came on a rainy April morning, 18 months after that terrifying night. In our loft over coffee, Noah got on one knee. The ring was simple, engraved with a wave pattern, our lives intertwined. I want to face every storm with you, he said. I said yes, crying, kissing him until we were breathless. We married the next summer in a small ceremony at a vineyard in the Willamette Valley. Rosa officiated, her voice clear. This is love. Choosing each other, flaws and all, showing up every day. 10 years later, we had a house in Northeast Portland, a garden where Noah grew herbs, a studio where I taught photography. My epilepsy was still there. Seizures came, meds changed, doctors were part of life. But it was just a part. I was Liam, photographer, husband, friend, terrible singer, person who managed epilepsy. And I was loved, wholly, fiercely. That night, when Noah found me seizing, felt like an ending. But it was a beginning, of trust, of love that saw all of me and said, yes, I choose you. And that love, that partnership, was what set me free.